How was your weekend, Dan?
Pretty good, thanks, John. Big weekend of grand finals, though. The NRL and the AFL seasons are done and dusted.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm so sad. Now I've got nothing to watch.
Thankfully, the Cricket World Cup has come to our rescue, John.
Perfect timing.
Not far away. Very perfect timing. Couldn't be better.
I think that's what most of Thursday will be, the preview and the Cricket World Cup, actually.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Today is going to be mostly what happened in the NRL and what happened in the AFL.
Absolutely, yep.
A lot did happen in the NRL.
Yes, John.
So, obviously, the Panthers are got their three-peat.
Mm-hmm.
What did you make of the game?
Yeah, John, I just thought it was extraordinary. The comeback. I just could not believe it. I don't know about you, but just looking at the game purely as a fan, if my team had lost the way that the Broncos lost, I wouldn't have left the house for the rest of the year, John. Seriously.
That's the kind of one where you're having a party and you're a Broncos fan and then you just tell everyone, get out.
I feel so sorry for Broncos supporters. I cannot imagine what they're going through right now. It just left me speechless. I don't feel sorry for the team, John. The game goes for 80 minutes and they lost the game. But I feel so deeply sorry for the supporters.
Well, I kind of found that it was actually like you can actually divide the game up into quarters.
Yeah, 100%.
And Broncos won 2 quarters and Panthers won 2 quarters and Panthers just won a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because the opening stanza of the match, this is the Broncos completed 2 of 11 sets or something ridiculous. But obviously Panthers didn't get away with it. That was always the fear, right? Like Broncos would screw up in the beginning.
I'll put my hand up, John. I tipped Penrith to win this game by a lot, and obviously that didn't eventuate. I think what cost Penrith a bit during the game was just the number of players they lost. They lost a couple of players to HIAs. I've got it somewhere in my notes here, John. I think it was Sorensen and Isaiah Yeo. They lost to HIAs.
Yeo was a big loss, massive loss.
Yeah, I think they came back on, but they were off for a fair while. And then you had, obviously, Jerome Luai with that shoulder injury, re-injuring the shoulder. And I think Tago was injured as well. So 4 injuries there, and that's where Ezra Mann went on his rampage in that second half down that side.
The Luai one is pretty funny because it was Panthers were being the Panthers, just like standard plodding along. And then when Luai came off, Nathan Cleary kind of had to step up into this, now I am the man, I am the dominant one, I have to do everything. And then that he actually...
And he did,
yeah. And I don't know, I've seen a lot of chatter about, maybe actually that is a better situation. Because obviously Luai is off contract next year. Panthers have told him that...
Some of us are watching that very closely, Sean.
Panthers have told him that they only have $800,000 for him or $600,000 for him or something like that. He actually manages himself, from what I understand as well. And so it could actually be, this is the chatter I've seen online, Luai leaving wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. Because Nathan Cleary's already etched himself into the annals of the record book,
3 premierships in a row.
2 Clive Churchill medals.
And he's only 25 years old. So he's just the 3rd player to win 2 Clive Churchill medals, John. The others were Billy Slater and Bradley Clyde.
Yeah, and so you look at those names, right? And so this is the discussion online, obviously, is maybe if Luai left, Cleary would have to step up even further. And then that could actually be the thing that takes him over to the immortal level.
That's a really good point you make, John, because something's got to give for Penrith. They're not going to be able to keep everybody, so they've got to look at, who's our absolute priority here? Maybe, and I mean, I'm not just talking about Cleary, but the other players in the team as well. Yeah, so they've got to look at who could make way. Maybe that performance, as you say, in the grand final, John. Maybe that clears the way for Luai to depart because they can cope without him.
There's guys like Dylan Edwards who he's like the unsung hero of that's a fullback's name, yeah. The unsung hero of Penrith. He outperformed his opposite number, Reece Walsh. He's been consistent and good for the past however many years, and he's appeared in so many grand finals and stuff. And I don't think he'd be on surely not that much coin actually. And so, yeah, like retaining him, retaining Nathan Cleary, obviously. Nathan Cleary's, look, he's there till the end of 2027, I believe. I've got some stuff about that later.
I think it'll be more like 2033 or something, John. We'll still be sitting here in 10 years talking about Nathan Cleary.
And, yeah, like Luai may be that thing that does actually put Nathan Cleary over. But, you know, they won. It was an amazing game. As you said, it was up and down affair. Everybody thought the Broncos had it.
Well, how could you not? You know, 24-8 in front with 18 minutes to go. How could you not think that the Broncos were going to win at that stage of the game?
Yeah,
to lose a grand final like that, it's just extraordinary.
Of course, now I've seen calls for Adam Reynolds to not play on next year because everything's his fault. But I actually think like Adam Reynolds, he took that injury in the first half, where he went to ground and it looked like there was something wrong with his leg. That really crawled his kicking game. Like, if you go back, he got good kick numbers throughout the game, but the opening stanza prior to that injury, he kicked that amazing 40-20. His kicking was on point. It was finding open space. And then after that, Reece Walsh took 3 kicks. Adam Reynolds' kicking wasn't as good, and I think that also made a big difference to Adam Reynolds' game as well.
That's right, John, and I think his halves partner could have helped him out a lot more. Ezra Mam only had 12 kick metres for the night, John. And I know he scored the 3 tries, but I think Reynolds really felt the pressure there, not having that support from Ezra Mam, only with 12 kick metres for the night. To be honest, that's just not good enough for a 5/8, John. Yeah. Again, I know he scored 3 tries. There was nothing wrong with his running game, obviously. But he needed to do a lot more with the boot in general play, Ezra Mam.
It kind of does tend to be Adam Reynolds' curse because he is so good with the boot that, like Rabbitohs had the same thing. They relied so over the top on Adam Reynolds. You know, you always know where the ball is going to go on the 5th tackle. And that a little bit comes from the hooker as well, who needs to look up and see where the space is and play it right or left to your preferred kickers. But, yeah, like Reece Walsh, obviously, he can kick quite well as well. I think Adam Reynolds has like 18, 20, like a million kicks basically compared to the rest.
Plenty, well, because he had no help.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when he hurt his leg, it really did. I noticed, I was commenting on it at the time, like Adam Reynolds' kicking's gone pretty crappy. Not crappy, he's still Adam Reynolds, but just it wasn't as good. And I didn't know if it was perhaps the injury or just like the pressure. But, I've already seen calls for him to retire and blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's the case.
That's an overreaction.
Yeah.
But I guess we do have to look at a few things with him, though, John. I mean, he did cost them the first 8 points of the game with those short dropouts. I'm going to talk to you about the short dropout. I sort of think I think it's a bit of an overused play, John, because I think the team doing it don't consider the worst case scenario. Like, they just think the worst case scenario is the other team catches it and they got it 10 metres out, in which case we'll back our defence to hold them out. But there are other scenarios that can happen. It might not go the 10. It might go out on the full or absolute worst case scenario, which happened on Sunday night. You concede a try because of it. Because you bat it back and there's no one home and Panthers score. I think it was Mitch Kenny scored that first try.
I don't know where or how it happened, but it used to be short dropouts were a rarity in desperate times call for desperate measures. Like a short dropout was a desperate measure, you know. As you said, there's so many bad things that can go. And then suddenly this year, I don't know why or how, it's just almost every play now is a short dropout when it's a dropout. And it's just, it seems a bit stupid, actually.
I think there's a number of reasons why I wouldn't do it. But I think in a big game, obviously, I think you've got to just go long. But I think why you go long against Penrith as well is you need to cut down. Penrith are a lot of teams are not very good at attacking 10 metres out. But Penrith are not in that category. They're very good attacking 10 metres out. So you need to limit the amount of time they spend in your 10 metre red zone. And if you go long, well, then you get in 3 or 4 tackles before they get down to your 10 metre zone. If you go short and they catch it, you tackle them, well, they're 10 metres out on the first tackle.
Yeah, I just have no idea why they're all doing it. Like, it happened through the prelims and actually in regular season, a lot of these short dropouts. For no reason, it's a tactical adjustment. It's not a standard, kick. I don't understand why or how, but it just came into the game kind of this year. Just everyone's doing short dropouts all the time. And you can, like you said, like the Broncos won the clear reason why it's not a good idea. Actually,
exactly, and it's these extremes we talk about with people's opinions, John. All right, there's a few question marks over Adam Reynolds' performance. That doesn't mean that he shouldn't be in the team. No. This was a team that were up 24-8 with 20 minutes to go in the grand final. They were that close to taking the title, and you're saying that the halfback shouldn't be in the team anymore or should retire? I mean...
12 other people on the field who missed tackles.
Like, give me a break. That having been said, John, I don't think Adam Reynolds got himself involved enough in the last 20 when they needed him. And also, you're going to have to ask a few questions about, in big games when it's on the line. I hate to bring it up, John, but at 14-12 down in 2021, he had that kick at goal from the sideline and he missed. And then the last 20 in this game when it was on the line and he went missing, the 2 short dropouts. There's a few things there, John, with Adam Reynolds in big games that I'm not sure about, but to say that he shouldn't be in the team is
he won a premiership.
He did in 2014.
I'm sure you enjoy getting reminded of that.
He did. Yeah, he got me. Yeah, he did. It's just...
That was a smashing, though. That's kind of...
That's the thing. It wasn't just him that day, right? They had a far better team across the park.
It was the kind of thing where... Yeah, when the game is on the line, when it's close, perhaps there may be an issue there where it was... Because he was a good... he wasn't man of the match because that was Sammy Burgess, yeah?
Yeah, with the broken cheekbone
but
and the first
Reynolds,
tackle against Jones.
He actually did very well, if I remember correctly. So maybe it is just a matter of if the game is on the line, if it's close, there could be some issues with his mindset.
But just because there are issues there, that doesn't mean that he should retire.
You would hope that the coaches address it. That's what they should do in the off season. I don't think.
But a great season from Adam Reynolds, though, obviously. But just Nathan Cleary, just sensational. So in that back end of the game, you had the 40-20 kick. You had him catching the ball, putting his foot out.
I thought that was weird, actually, at the time, putting the foot out, because I thought the ball was going out anyway.
Yeah, right, yeah. I guess he probably didn't know, so he thought safety first. Or put the foot out
it was kind of weird, because it was it's one of those things where you could have just gone...
Yeah.
Just let it go. But, it was good. I remember Matty Head did that a long time ago as well. And the commentators were really complimentary about it because he obviously knows the rules. I think that's kind of what it showed, though, that Nathan Cleary knows the rules, knows when to apply the rules, and went yep, I can get this ball here. I really thought it was going out anyway.
yeah, absolutely. And then you had, he set up Leota for that try, set up Crichton for that try, and then scored the winner himself, obviously.
He has scored multiple tries exactly like that this year. Just a solo try in that kind of area of the field as well. And it's something that people should be reviewing video on and going next year when Nathan Cleary gets the ball at this spot. I actually saw a video on the internet of a side-by-side comparison of 4 tries that were all exactly the same pretty much. One of them he dived over, one of them he almost got caught and just got over. But, this one obviously he cut through and ran around, put the ball down under the sticks. But, it's the kind of thing where you should be studying video and going... If he gets the ball there, put someone here, guys. This, that'll shut down that try. Because, it's fool me once, but it's happened multiple times throughout the year, just this year. And the fact that somebody on, Instagram or TikTok or whatever can find that and point it out, you would hope the coaches can too.
And he won the premiership with it, So 37 from 38 completions from Penrith, John. That kept them in it. At 97%, Brisbane had 27 from 38, 71%. Brisbane made 11 errors, Penrith made 1. I think those errors just caught up with Brisbane in the end, John.
Yeah, the early errors was the thing that killed them.
They just had too much defending to do. Penrith had 56% of the ball. Yeah, so I think in the end it just wore Brisbane down, John. Was there a moment when you were watching it, John, where you thought, this is happening, this comeback is happening? Or did you just think Brisbane were going to hold on? Obviously, you thought it when Cleary scored.
That was that. But that was it. It was when Cleary scored. I was it's all over there. That's done now.
Yeah.
When they came back and came within the shouting distance, we were sitting there going, come on, Brisbane, you got to stand up. But then it just there was this roll on.
Just snowballed.
After that second try, there was a passage of play of 3 tries. After that second one. it just looked like at that point, like there is a roll on here.
Yeah.
This just has, they have a roll, and it's Brisbane just can't seem to stop it. Someone needs to just do something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Momentum's hard to stop in sport, isn't it?
And it's, in a defensive line, it's you can blame Adam Reynolds all you want, but if a team is getting an attacking roll on, it's up to the forwards to put a stop to it.
Yeah.
The forwards need
right.
to stand up, put on a big hit, force an error, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, the Broncos forwards just got steamrolled through that roll, and then the only reason the backs score is because the forwards run hard.
Yeah, that's right. And we've talked a lot about Adam Reynolds, but there was one point in commentary, and it was a fair way into the game too. It wasn't early in the game, where Billy Slater said that, look, Reece Walsh has only had 2 runs here. He's got to get himself into the game. He didn't have enough involvement on Sunday night, John.
Yeah, I think the Panthers shut him down well.
Yeah.
It looked like they two-manned him, actually, throughout. I was talking about this as well on the night. What it kind of seemed like is whenever Reece Walsh was drifting, there was a couple of Panthers players drifting the same way. And there was one point, it was actually when that good roll started, because he set up one of Ezra Mam's tries, right? Yeah, it was at that point.
Yeah, he did.
Because Reece Walsh has a habit of only going one way as well, which is not good for a fullback, to be honest. And it seemed like this is the kind of thing I was just talking about. Penrith had studied video and gone, when he's doing this is what he's going to do. And so they shut him down, 2 men on every single time he touched the ball. And then he went to the other side and did the exact same thing as he normally does, but on the other side, and then sliced through. That was the kind of thing where, I think Penrith shut him down really well because he's very young. We looked him up last week. He's 21. Yeah.
21.
Very young, very inexperienced, even though he has played finals, played Origin. He's got to learn to, obviously I'm big combat sports. It's like if a fighter comes out and just constantly throws a 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, everyone knows he's going to throw a 1-2 and then just block the 1-2 and then hit him to the body. And that was the problem with Reece Walsh. He always does the same thing. He can do other things, which you saw, because he changed to the other side, did the exact same play on the other side, and it was I think it was a line break assist at the time. He opened up the defensive line. But then he turned around and went back to his same old. So I think in the off-season, you would hope that Reece Walsh works on opening his game up to be able to actually be doing more. Start throwing those leg kicks to Reece Walsh.
I mean, 16 up with 20 to go. You just got to find a way to get the job done, John.
And he's
seriously.
the guy, he's the guy that really, I think more than anything, he was that X factor that Broncos needed to, look, they were ahead, and then, they didn't need Reece Walsh at that point to stand up and do something. But when Penrith got that roll on, and if Broncos had actually got the ball, was when you needed Reece Walsh to stand up and do something.
Yeah.
In attack. The forwards needed to defend, and those X factors needed to attack, and unfortunately they didn't.
100%. Yeah, 5th premiership for Penrith, 1991, 2003, and 2021, 2022, 2023. 3 premierships in a row, first team to do that since Parramatta in 81, 82 and 83, John.
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Exactly 40 years.
There you go. Good timing.
Well
done,
hopefully
Penrith.
They don't get
phenomenal.
4th.
What a phenomenal comeback. They can never be beaten, John.
Yeah, but I hope they don't get 4 in a row. But
you look at it and you go, so that's the thing, John, they lost all those players. That just says to me, how far in front they are of everyone else. They lost Luai, they lost Tago, they lost Sorensen, they lost Yo, and they still find a way to get it done.
One of the things about them is every year that they've won, they've lost a stack of players to other clubs. As a typical, they lost Kikau and whoever, Matt Burton and so on. But it doesn't make any. It makes literally zero difference. Yeah. Zero difference, none at all. And so that's you really hope they don't get a 4th in a row. But there's no reason based on the recent history that they shouldn't actually.
I think they've got 10,000 juniors out there, so they've got so many players to pick from, and this is a team that's developed their success. It's all their own juniors. They haven't gone and bought a premiership like some other teams would do, who I won't name. But yeah, a fully developed team, local juniors. They've well and truly earned their success. So well done, Penrith.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Enjoy your win.
Yeah, but still we all hate it that they got 3 in a row.
You really want someone else to win it next year, don't you, John?
And Jerome Luai, of course, did his Instagram post. That was well expected.
I didn't see it, John.
It was just it was pretty funny. Like he just did the because he had the issue in State of Origin that everyone was so angry about.
The one where he said people have to go to work the next day.
His Instagram post was like, "Who has to work tomorrow?" It's pretty funny, to be honest. But still, no one wanted to see it. Yeah. So there was also obviously the other. Did you watch the other games?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, state championship, hey.
Yeah, like Rabbitohs won 42-22.
Yep.
I thought the game was really entertaining, but more like how the Toyota Cup and the NYC used to be entertaining. You know, like it wasn't the best football.
Yeah.
But it was
a lot of points, not much defence going on.
But the game started with a knock-on the first kickoff to the Rabbitohs.
So that reminded me, John, of Martin Bella, 1994 Grand Final, Canberra versus Canterbury. It's the first game that I can remember. Canberra kick off to Canterbury, Martin Bella knocks on in the in goal. And that sets the tone for the day. Canberra run riot, 36-12. See you later. Yeah, well, that reminded me.
It was an embarrassment, really.
Yeah.
But the good news that came out of that one was that Blake Taff actually had a good run. So Canterbury fans should be happy. He set up a try. He did make a lot of mistakes in defence.
Okay. Yeah,
Which is not something you want to see from the Bulldogs.
I don't want to go off on too much of a Bulldogs tangent here, John, but for some reason I'm not all that confident about next year, other than the fact that Stephen Crichton's coming. But anyway,
he had some shocking defensive decisions and missed tackles.
Tyrone Munro scored 3 tries for Souths, and Tom Carr got 2 as well. So well done to them. Munro was player of the match too.
Oh, yeah. And so Blake Taff also, he did some good kicks, actually. That's what I thought. His kicking game was good.
Yeah.
But I don't know what he's going to do at Bulldogs. But yeah, that was like, I was paying special attention to him because, my wife's a Bulldogs fan. And I was saying to her, like, that guy's coming next year. And I was actually at one point I pointed and went, he's coming to the Bulldogs next year, and then he missed a tackle. She's like, her face just fell like more of the hell. But overall, Rabbitohs was, 42-22 is ridiculous. I wanted to touch on this because, I mentioned I got a Facebook memory.
Yep.
Where it was from years and years and years ago, and it was when every team had to have a team. So every team had 3 teams. So it was it used to be the NYC, then it was the whatever it's called, Premier League, and then Top League. And so it was cool because throughout the day I changed my jerseys to match. This is my Facebook memory, right? To match those teams. And I don't like this state championship game because it's really telling that every team doesn't have a middle of the road team, actually. They don't have that. They're just using other competitions, teams in contracts and things like that. So you have like the Jets and the Bears and stuff like that providing players. I would much prefer it if every team, first grade team, was required to have 3 teams, and then we could watch. Well, now we've got the NRLW 4 matches.
And do you reckon just include teams like the Jets and the Bears as well?
Yeah, if you have to. But I would prefer it if and that's never going to happen, but my thing would be if they were rebranded. So you could watch, it was the Roosters in one match that I watched. It was the year of the Sharks, actually. It was Roosters. Then it was Illawarra Cutters was the Dragons one. And then it was the Sharks. But, they linking teams, I don't like this North Sydney Bears as Melbourne's feeder squad or whatever the crap it is.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like the people who have those high first grade connections have no connection to the lower grade teams because they're more of a contractual arrangement as opposed to an actual required team. Yeah. So that's why I haven't liked the state championship for a while because of that.
Yeah, just a few more notes on this one, John. The Brisbane Tigers beat the Burleigh Bears 22-18 in the Queensland Cup Grand Final to qualify for that one. Souths beat North, speaking of the North Sydney Bears, John, by the same score in the New South Wales Cup Grand Final, 22-18. So there you go. So Queensland teams won the first 2 state championships in 2014 and 2015, but since then it's been dominated by New South Wales Cup winners. Wasn't played in 2020 or 2021, John. We all know why. Yep. COVID-19 pandemic. those comps weren't held in those years.
Yeah, and that's so. You know, it's good as a New South Welshman because the Queensland Rugby League comp is meant to be way better than New South Wales Rugby League comp, but New South Wales was obviously winning more. But still, I really, really wish that they were linked like in a proper way, and they're making enough money now. I know they closed it because a lot of clubs didn't have enough money, but now the NRL makes enough money that they can go, here's $10 million for your first grade, $5 million for your second grade, and $2 million for your third grade, or some crap like that. I don't know, it's like so they could do $15 million or something. They sit around and go, here, now go out and recruit your players. We're paying all of your salaries. All your other stuff is on you. Yeah. And then they have enough money now to do that. I always thought they would go back to that, but they haven't. Which again, I'm proudly disappointed by. We did have the NRLW.
Yes, we did.
That was a cracker of a game too.
Knights 24 beat the Titans 18.
So Tamika Upton is obviously well deserving of that Dally M.
Yeah, scored 2 tries, John.
When they were losing. They were losing. She did the Nathan Cleary, and I actually saw this great comment on Reddit after the Nathan Cleary did that individual brilliance, and that's what it was talking about. It's a Reddit thread that Nathan Cleary's ridiculous, blah blah, and someone commented, it was like, that was amazing. I haven't seen an amazing individual performance like that since Tamika Upton in 2023. Because she was just phenomenal.
She was. I think it's Jamie Chapman scored 3 tries for the Titans, John. So good effort in a losing team by her, and back-to-back NRLW premierships for the Knights, John. Well done.
Titans had a cracker every year. They I think we discussed it last week. They went from last to a premiership grand final. I think they could be there again next year. The worst team in the NRLW right now is the Dragons. I know we haven't previewed.
Bit of a work in progress, John.
So those NRLW matches are getting much bigger, and I think in the new year we'll probably be talking a lot more about them as well, previewing them and reviewing them, because they had a massive crowd there as well. That was the other thing I noticed. A massive crowd for the NRLW match. And it's not, I don't believe it's the kind of thing where people went just because they're going. I think people went because they wanted to see the NRLW. And the football on display was great. Great. And it was only 70 minutes, which is weird to me.
Only 70 minutes?
Yeah, it's not an 80-minute match. I kept saying that match is almost over, and I'm like, no, man, it's 68 minutes. What's this guy talking about?
I mean, it might have helped them in the heat, not having to play 80.
That was awful. Yeah. The heat was ridiculous.
Yeah, at that time of the day, it was too. But well done to the Knights. Great effort.
Yeah, it was really good. I really liked the quality of football. Like I think I said a few weeks ago, when it first came, I wasn't interested because the quality of football was terrible. Now the quality of football is really, really good. That's another one where I think the NRL should drop more money into the clubs. Obviously, the NRL gives grants and stuff like that, but I did read yesterday there are quite a few players that have to go back to work now. Like a few of them are full-time police officers and things like that. I would hope that very soon the NRLW grows to the point where all of them are full-time employees.
I think the Bulldogs are now going to enter the competition.
I think there's 2 more coming.
Yep,
So 10
I'm not sure when. I'm not sure if it's next season or the season after, but the Bulldogs are going to come in.
So there's 10 now, and there's meant to be 12. I think it might be next season. I can't remember exactly.
Yep.
But they want to get to. I remember they want to get to the 18. So when the NRL, I read a little while ago, when the NRL gets to their 18th team, they want to make sure the NRLW also has 18th team in that same year. So it'll be introduction of the last 2 teams in whatever year that was when they go into 18, which would be cool.
Yeah.
And they're good warm-ups, they're good matches. People go and watch them. The ladies are like superstars, actually. Like a lot of people run and get photos with them and stuff like that. And I saw kids with in the crowd with the player names printed on the back of their jerseys and stuff too. It's awesome. And I really, really appreciate the NRL. Another thing the NRL does over the AFL is they scheduled the season to have the grand final on the same day.
Yeah.
AFL women's still going.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like the proper way to do things.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a tick in the NRL column, John.
I would. I used to love going to club games and watching all 3 games. And that's another reason why I wish that every club had to have it. I would, every club game that I would go to regular season game would be a day like the grand final for me. And there was a bunch of people at because I used to go to a lot of Roosters games, Dragons games. There'd be a bunch of people at those games that I would reckon it was a small enough crowd at that stage that I would recognise, and we would all know each other as the guys who come to everything.
And also that experience that the AFLW players would have on grand final day, playing in front of that 100,000 strong crowd at the MCG, that obviously they're not going to have that experience if the grand final's at the end of October or whenever it is.
So I think the NRL is doing a much better job with the women's. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay.
But we can go on to the Panthers year.
Yeah, Panthers year, yeah. We've talked about it in detail, John, but I think they won it on the back of their defence. As we've discussed, only conceding 312 points in the regular season. The Broncos were the next best, conceding 425, so it shows how much better Penrith were in defence than every other team. Way ahead of everyone else. I think that's... Yeah. I know, obviously, that was one in the grand final, but if you're looking a bit deeper, all throughout the year, it was their consistently the best defensive team. I
always say you have good defence and your attack will come. And Penrith really show it because their attack is amazing as well. It's really weird, their gains and losses, right? So they're gaining Paul Alamotti
from the
Bulldogs, Dane Laurie from the Tigers, Riley Price from North Queensland, and Brad Schneider from Canberra Raiders. So that's 3 out of the 4 gains that they have are from bottom 8 teams. Not just bottom 8 teams, 2 of the very lowly ranked teams.
Yeah, I think by the sound of that, John, they're not going to, those names aren't going to take too much out of their salary cap. So obviously their scouts have seen something in those players and they think they can do a job for them.
And then another one from Canberra, which is Canberra. But their losses are massive, right? So we talked about Jack Cogger going to the Knights. We'll see what happens there. Knights obviously have a lot of, 10 positional changes they're going through, but he'll be playing in front of Kalen Ponga. So, that's something. They've also lost Stephen Crichton to the Bulldogs.
Yes.
Spencer Leniu to
the Roosters. That's a big loss. I've got big raps on him.
Yeah.
A very damaging ball runner, Spencer Leniu.
And then Damon Salmon going to the Bulldogs as well. They've got some big losses.
Especially Crichton. Yeah.
Not, the biggest gains, but as I just said, it's the Panthers. This happens after every grand final.
Someone else to fill in the hole, right?
So, stupid Panthers. They could definitely win again next year.
You'd take anyone else next year, wouldn't you, John?
Of course.
Anyone else.
I hated it when the Roosters won twice in a row and then the Panthers run twice in a row. It's supposed to be an even competition, and the NRL can no longer use this nonsense of, different teams won every year for the past 10 years. No, man, only 2 teams have won.
True. I guess the other side of that, though, John, is I like the idea of teams having to earn their success as well. And I don't want it to just be a case of, you won one, so now we're going to sort of rip the bones out of you and now we'll take all your players out. You go down the... I like the idea of a team earns their success and they have a period of success.
Yeah, we'd hope.
And now someone's got to be good enough to knock them off their perch. John.
Yeah, Broncos almost were, but unfortunately they also had a very successful year, but unfortunately fell short at the end.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the whole year, John, phenomenal turnaround by this club. They were wooden spooners back in 2020. Last year they bombed out and finished 9th after being in the top 8 for most of the season. But, John, we do have to say that they are going to have a lot of trouble living with this grand final defeat. I think especially after the way they lost in 2015 as well. So their last 2 grand finals now, John, they've lost games. I think this one was worse because they had a huge lead in this one and let it slip. 2015, it was more sort of on a knife's edge.
Yeah, it was all Ben Hunt's fault.
Yeah, could have gone either way, that one. I think that's easier to live with. I think the one where you're well in front and you bomb it, I think that's much harder, John. Yeah. And now they've got to live with it.
Well, they're only gaining Fletcher Baker from the Roosters, and they've got big losses too. So they're losing Herbie Farmworth, which is a massive loss, and Tom Flegler, which is a massive loss, going to the Dolphins. And then Keenan Palacia going to the Gold Coast, and Ethan Quai-Ward is going to Canterbury. So Keenan Palacia and Ethan Quai-Ward aren't the big losses, but I think Herbie Farmworth and Tom Flegler are massive losses for the Broncos, and their gains of just Fletcher Baker are not the Broncos aren't like the Panthers where they can lose those two big names and gain no one. And after, like you said, the big loss, it's going to be very difficult for them to be sitting around the same kind of pushing for the minor premiership unless Kevin Walters is a super coach, which I think we'll really find out next year.
Yeah, like what you sort of go, does this, you've got to ask the question, John, does this defeat have a lasting impact on them?
Yeah,
I think it's in that category of, we'll put it this way, John, I haven't seen in terms of having a big lead and having the trophy and then losing the trophy, I haven't seen anything like that.
No,
I have not.
And that's what it'll come down to, that coaching. We'll see. Because Kevy's done a wonderful job.
I think they might have to call on the sports psychologist if they've got one there, John.
They all got one.
I think they're going to have to. He's going to have to do some work with them after that because that's not going to be an easy one to get over.
I think we'll also know very quickly at the beginning of next year what the effect has been. I mean, the effect can change. It's a build thing because it's not a sprint. It's a marathon, as we all know. 27 rounds next year to see. But I think we'll know very quickly at the beginning of the year just how adversely they've been affected. Yeah. And then whether they can fix it on the fly or if they can fix it even over the holidays. And the draw will come out in November. So it'll be interesting to see when Broncos are going to play Panthers, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're going to get to the AFL in a minute, John, but after the Brisbane Lions lost to Collingwood in that close game on Saturday, Chris Fagan, the Lions coach, said in the press conference, he was asked about this, is the losing the grand final, is it going to have a lasting effect? And Chris Fagan said, look, I think that happens to teams that get, thrashed in the grand final. I don't think it happens to teams that have a close loss. I think he's right in the context of the Brisbane Lions because that game ebbed and flowed. But I don't know if his philosophy is right in relation to the Broncos because they had it and lost it.
They were going to win.
And I think it's going to be very interesting how they come back from that, John.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It's obviously a wait and see. It could come that Kevin Walters is the greatest and best coach in the history of the world after Ivan Cleary. And he gets them up and they win next year. Or it could be like a wooden spoon year for them. There is some extremes that can happen from this result. And sports psychology is a really important thing.
I think they're going to have to. Yeah, they're going to have to really. Yeah, freshen up over the off season and just try and forget about footy for a while, John. Well, there's nothing else they can do. It's done now.
Well, they'll be back.
They've got to just deal with it and come back bigger and stronger in 2024.
They got some of them have got the.
They got the Pacific Championships.
So actually, we got news, right? So the teams were just named today.
Yeah.
For the Pacific Championship men's and women's. I got the squad here. So for the men, it's Josh Addo-Carr, in no particular order. Yep. Josh Addo-Carr from the Bulldogs, Patrick Carrigan from the Broncos, Daly Cherry Evans from the Seagulls, Nathan Cleary from the Panthers, Selwyn Cobbo Broncos, Lindsay Collin Roosters, Ruben Cotter Cowboys, Tino, I can never say Tino's name, from the Titans, Tom Flegler from the Broncos, Harry Grant from the Storm, Payne Haas from the Broncos, Val Holmes from the Cowboys, Ben Hunt from the Dragons, Liam Martin from the Panthers, Cam Munster from Storm, Cameron Murray from Rabbitohs, Katoni Staggs Broncos, Hamiso Tuabe, I can never say his name either, from the Dolphins, James Tedesco at captain for the Roosters, Jake Trbojevic from the Seagulls, and Isaiah Yeo from the Panthers. There's 5 debutants in this match. I think some of the notable omissions would be Ponga and Risa Walsh were left out in favour of Tedesco. I mean, he is the incumbent captain, but in favour of Tedesco is a little bit weird.
I think that's a bit harsh on them.
I think it's harsh because Val Holmes was named.
Yeah, exactly. And especially, I thought they should have. I know we were a bit critical of Reece Walsh's game on Sunday night, but I would have found a spot for him, John. I think he did enough over the course of the season, the final series.
I know Val Holmes is also an incumbent.
We'll put it this way, John. If I was playing against Australia, I wouldn't want to see Reece Walsh or Caitlin Ponga in the team.
Exactly. If Val Holmes hasn't played for 4 weeks, 4 weeks before the end of the season, plus he hasn't played for the last 4 weeks, plus he's going to miss the first match. And
Can I ask you a question, John? Yeah. So if you're playing against Australia, if you got a choice of three, who would you prefer running at you? Tedesco, Kalen Ponga, or Reece Walsh at the moment? I'd prefer Tedesco running at me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of the three, now at this point.
It'd go Tedesco, then Reece Walsh, then Kalen Ponga, to be honest. Because I know
100%.
Kalen Ponga has more maturity.
Yeah.
You know, discussed it just before. Like Reece Walsh, he has some flaws in his game that come with maturity and unlocking variety. Like, Kalen Ponga scares the crap out of me, you know.
To be honest, John, the team's come out today, hasn't it? And I finished my notes last night, so I haven't seen the team until you've read it.
Just came out like an hour ago.
Yeah, so I can't believe that Walsh and Ponga are not in the squad.
Yeah,
I can't believe it. That's extraordinary.
Look, I'm always okay with leaving the captain in, because Tedesco was in good form at the end of the year. I'm always okay with leaving the captain in. But they're out of all those players, their replacement fullback is basically Val Holmes. Val Holmes is there, you know, he's probably going to be named on the wing.
I would have had Ponga or Walsh ahead of Tedesco at the moment. I think Australia is that good.
Well, yeah.
You have to pick your team before you pick your captain. In my view, I wouldn't be picking Tedesco just because he's the captain ahead of Walsh and Ponga.
In theory, it should have been, if you're going to pick two fullbacks, it should have been Walsh and Ponga, right? And Ponga would obviously be the main, and Walsh would be the secondary. But I'm okay if they're going to pick Tedesco. Okay, it's like, because they always got to have the loyalty thing. It's one of the things that they all talk about, especially Mal Meninga, Queensland loyalty. Okay, keep your Tedesco. It's fine, but don't ignore Ponga and Reece Walsh for Val Holmes if you're going to keep Tedesco. At the best, you're going to pick them both, and unfortunately leave out Tedesco and Val Holmes. But I think that is a massive mistake. I mean, it is the Pacific Championship. The hardest team in the competition is obviously New Zealand. But it's just bizarre to me that they picked Val Holmes.
Sorry, John, do you know off the top of your head, do you know how many are in that squad? Or
I count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
I think in a 21 squad, you got to find spots for Ponga and Reece Walsh. You have to.
Yeah, so they have obviously they got two hookers, Ben Hunt and Harry Grant will alternate hooking. They did in the World Cup. They were named in every team, one of them off the bench and one of them starting. That's all well and good. You know, they've named established backs like Josh Addo-Carr. I'm really interested to see whether they start with Daly Cherry-Evans or Nathan Cleary. Because Nathan Cleary hasn't actually been the best in rep games, you know, but Daly
I think with the
Cherry-Evans,
grand final, the way it was, I think you got to go Cleary.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Daly Cherry-Evans is a rep game player.
He is. It just frustrates me, John, because, you know, what are the, you know, what's the Kangaroo squad there for if you're not going to pick players on form? You know, like what? It's just. You know, Ponga and Reece Walsh, all right, we know Reece Walsh may not have had the best grand final, but that aside, him and Ponga are the two form fullbacks, and they don't get a look in.
They've picked Cam Munster and Nathan Cleary and Daly Cherry-Evans are your three established halves. So if one of them goes down, okay, so actually if Cam Munster goes down, I don't think either Daly Cherry-Evans or Nathan Cleary can play 5/8 very well. They're not going to be my first choice 5/8, second, third, fourth, or even fifth. And having Kalen Ponga in there would have also covered for that. He can play 5/8. Obviously, for the Knights, it wasn't the best. But with someone like Nathan Cleary or Daly Cherry-Evans there to help him, it's going to be a massive difference, you know. Yeah, it's a bizarre choice. You know, Mal Meninga's Mal Meninga, and Australia's probably going to win. And that's one of the...
look, they'll win either way, but it's not the point, is it? I mean, the point is they've got to pick their form side.
I don't like it because... No. Like, just because Australia wins doesn't mean...
It doesn't justify the selections because they should be well ahead of...
They win
anyway. Have a far bigger talent pool to pick from than all the countries they're playing against. Sorry, did you want to talk about Brad Fittler, John?
Just let me do the Jawahar's team as well, because they were named. Yep. So one of the things about of course, Tamika Upton's going to make her debut. So it's Taryn Aiken from the Roosters, Kezi Apps from West Tigers. Kezi Apps is an amazing player. Yep. Shaylee Brent from Titans, Ali Brigginshaw from Broncos, Lauren Brown from Titans, Jamie Chapman from Titans, Kennedy Charrington from the Eels, Yasmin Clydesdale from the Knights, Keely Davis from the Roosters, Jess Elliston from the Titans, Caitlin Johnson from the Knights, Isabel Kelly from Roosters, Olivia Kennick from the Roosters, Emma Manzelman from the Cowboys, Shannon Marteau from Titans, Ivania Palit from the Titans, Julia Roberts from Broncos, Jessica Sturgis from Roosters, Samaima Tafel from the Raiders, Emma Tonagato from the Sharks, and Tamika Upton from the Knights. 9 out of the 10, this is one of the things I wanted to discuss here, right? I just wanted to mention here. 9 out of the 10 NRLW squads are represented. The only team that isn't is the Dragons. The Dragons just can't catch a beat right now. Even the Dragons.
No good, John.
Dragons NRLW team was really good, and now they're not as good, and it's really worrying signs that basically every Dragons squad is not traveling well. So that's the thing from there. But again, the Australian women, the Jillaroo, this is a good team. I fully love every single choice for this one. I have no criticisms. They will probably win. I think the last time Australia played New Zealand, they won. It was in the World Cup final. They won 54-4 or something like that. And this is the kind of squad that you want to see picked in the men's that are going to demolish the New Zealand team 54-4 in the final. What I think with some of the small mistakes they make, like I said, I think the Australian men will win. And they'll win 34-14, and it'll all be justified as we picked the right one. But frankly, Australia should be winning 54-4 every match. So but the Jillaroo's team, the Pacific Championship Women's is the same time and dates as the Pacific Championship Men's. So hopefully you can see some openers. Yep. Both teams kick off on the 14th of October. In Townsville. Now, Brad Fittler.
Yes.
In our podcast the other day, while we were in our podcast,
yes,
Brad Fittler apparently resigned. And I messaged Dan and I said, hey, Brad Fittler just resigned. And he suggested I do a cold opener where we record something.
Yeah.
But then all this news started to come out and I couldn't actually get filter through it to find it. The opener would have been, I think Brad Fittler resigned. I don't really know. There's been a lot of news that has come out that was coming out at this time, and so I was like, screw it, we'll just wait till Monday to discuss it. So Brad Fittler's definitely resigned.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? We only do 2 records a week, so there are going to be things that happen while we're recording. So we just do our best with that sort of stuff.
So I saw that he got, on that day, I saw that he got fired, I saw that he resigned, I saw that he was extended, I saw all in the space of it was crazy.
Hard to keep up with.
But right now with New South Wales, they don't have any coaching staff.
No, so it was interesting, John, the way that it happened. So apparently Brad Fittler was offered another deal by the New South Wales Rugby League, and I got to be honest, John. I think he was lucky to get any deal from them. I mean, I don't think. We'll put it this way: if I was running the New South Wales Rugby League, I would not have offered him a new deal because he's lost 2 series in a row. He's lost 3 series out of the last 4, and one of those in 2020, Queensland. It was reported at the time had their worst ever team, and he lost to that team. So he's lost 3 of the last 4 series, including the last 2. I think if you lose 2 series in a row, unless you're an absolute super coach, I think that's lights out. If you're an Origin coach, pretty much.
What I read was, he was offered another deal, but it was back to part-time.
Yes. But to be honest, that's better than nothing, right? You know what I mean?
It's that in itself is nonsense. I reckon they offered it to him because there's no one else, to be honest. Who'd want to do it? It's the worst job in rugby league to be the New South Wales coach. And if they're going to put it back to part-time, and it was established, years ago that with Queensland's full-time coach, it was what was one of the major contributing factors to their domination, aside from their team, obviously. But the fact that Mal Meninga was the full-time coach who could spend all year talking to his players, working out what they're going to do, all that kind of stuff. And whoever comes in now, the 2 names I've seen floated are Ricky Stewart and Craig Bellamy. They're just going back to the same old silliness. Whose idea was it to change the model of coaching for New South Wales Rugby League after losing, moving away from a model that is so successful with Queensland? We're just going to change it back to a model that already got smashed by Queensland so many times. Whose idea was that? Is it because they don't have funding? Is it because they don't have money?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So your argument is about the decision to move it back to a part-time role.
I mean, I don't care who they offer it to at this point in time because, we're losers.
That's the thing. So maybe the solution is we'll keep it the way it is but hire a different coach.
Yeah, that's what I reckon they may have. Well, there's a total conjecture. But if I was New South Wales, they sat down and went, oh my God, there's nobody who's going to want to do this. We literally have nobody else who we can offer this to. We'll just have to chuck Fittler on again, and we'll just tell him part-time.
It does look a bit amateurish. It does. Where you just go, oh look, we're gonna reduce it to a part-time. I mean, as you said, there's no reason for it. I mean, Origin's booming, the game's booming. There's no reason why they should be making this sort of reduction. You lost,
and you've been going badly for the past 2 years, so we're going to make your job harder and extend you.
Yeah. So that's another argument. Put it this way, I don't think Fittler should have continued.
No, I don't think so either.
But if that's a fair call to say that it should still be a full-time role and they just need another full-time coach. But I think, put it this way, from his point of view, whether you agree with the decision to reduce it to a part-time role or not, from his point of view, I think he was lucky to get any offer because I wouldn't have made him any offer.
Yeah, well, that's what I reckon. They made him the offer solely because there's no one else.
Yeah.
I believe they had sounded out the Johns brothers, who are currently in a war with each other. But anyway, Andrew Johns was on television the other day saying he would just never do it.
No, I think he said before that he just doesn't want the stress of the job.
So he said it's like, well done to how aware Andrew Johns is about his own behaviour. He said it would be awful. He wouldn't be able to handle it. It would be horrible for the people in his life, his family, everyone around him. He wouldn't be able to handle the press conferences. He wouldn't be able to handle the pressure. The video footage, the live footage, if New South Wales were losing, would be him headbutting the glass.
I'll put it this way, I think he would lack the temperament for it, the patience for it, John.
And so that wasn't a good idea anyway, if that was what was really happening with us sounding out the Johns brothers. Matty Johns isn't going to do it. I don't know. Like, I read many years ago that it was, Cooper Cronk was a centre and a winger when he debuted, and it was Matty Johns' idea to turn him into a halfback, actually. And Matty Johns is a great football brain. He's a great New South Welshman, except when he's messing with his brother. And so, he'd be good to do it, but he's also not going to do it because he's got media commitments and all that kind of thing.
It's almost like the Johns brothers are too big for this job.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. Yeah. But there is no one else. If they're sounding out Ricky Stewart and Craig Bellamy, both of those guys, been there, done that, failed at that. You may as well just keep Brad Fittler. It's because it's the same thing. Neither of those guys are going to be able to do what needs to be done, I think. They've both got jobs. I mean, surely, I don't know how Ricky Stewart has his job, but
that is a whole other story.
Yeah. But Craig Bellamy can't do it. With Craig Bellamy, actually, when he did it, he said he doesn't want to do it anymore because he doesn't want to coach against his. It's too hard for him to coach against his players and then go back to the regular coaching, having half his players that he coached having lost, and then the other half that he coached against having won. And so he doesn't want to do it. So unless he's going to retire from first grade coaching, then, maybe he could do it. But again, I don't know if he could do it. It's not New South Wales is very different. I don't know who the person is.
I think, John, it's because they've just won so few State of Origin series that New South Wales Origin legends in the modern era are just few and far between because they've won so few Origin series. Queensland's got any number of legends in recent times they could call upon.
Apparently,
New South Wales just doesn't have it.
Apparently, they asked Paul Gallen as well. That was one of the things, and he just said, "Nah, no chance."
I don't think Gallen would work, John.
No, of course not. No. But it just speaks to the desperation about the fact that it is there's nobody there. There's nobody who can do it. Who's going to do it? Who would want to do it? It sucks as a job.
And I know Phil Gould's name's been mentioned, but as we've said, he's got far too much to do at the Bulldogs, and he's been out of it for a long time. Was a very successful State of Origin coach, but that's going back a long time now.
And so,
we're going back 20 years now.
You know who they should hire? Marion McGregor. Because he was the assistant coach who no longer works there.
Maybe. Well, why not, John? I mean, as I said, I'd rather marry McGregor than to go back to Bellamy or Ricky Stewart. Because as you said, they've been there, done that. And we've been there, done that, so I'm all for it. Give Mary McGregor a go.
Yeah, so
Why not?
my coaching thing that I'm just thinking of off the top of my head right now is Mary McGregor as the head coach, and then Ivan Cleary and Shane Flanagan as his assistants.
Well, Ivan Cleary was sitting over Brad Fittler's shoulder in Game 3 this year, John. And that worked out well. That was the only game that Ivan Cleary sat over his shoulder. And look how New South Wales went. And so can you get Ivan Cleary involved in the 3 games where all he does is goes into the coach's box on the night?
I think that's what they'll do. Like, because Billy Slater has that. I can't remember with who, but Mal Meninga famously had it with Michael Hagan.
Yeah.
He was actually Mal was accredited with giving them the inspiration, the reason to play, the former Origin legend kind of thing, and Michael Hagan was the training and tactics coach, the football coach. And that's what it should have been with Brad Fittler and Ivan Cleary. They could do that, but God knows who's going to do it. And, they always say planning for next year's Origin starts straight after the end of the first one. Billy Slater's been planning for it. He's already on his bike. And New South Wales is once again, they have nobody.
And the thing is, if Slater wasn't doing it, well, they could get Smith to do it. They could get Cronk to do it. They could get Thurston to do it. New South Wales just don't have those recent Origin legends to call upon.
Well, they're gonna have Christmas off, and they're gonna be able to find someone probably like January, February, and the first match is in May. I don't think New South Wales I think it's going to be a long year for New South Wales as well. I just can't see, with the schmozzle nonsense that's going on, that New South Wales will be able to do well next year.
Is it possible, John, that, and again, I don't really agree with it, I'll just make that clear, but could it be possible that they only made the part-time offer to Fittler because of his specific situation? Like, in terms of, if they're getting someone else to do it, well, they'll go back to the full-time arrangement. But in terms of his circumstances, where he's at, losing the last 2, losing 3 of the last 4, that was the only offer they were prepared to make to him.
Possibly. It could be, actually.
Yeah.
Because that's what I said before. There's no one to do it.
Yeah.
And so they were like, crap, we're just going to have to offer it to Brad Fittler, but maybe even part-time.
Yeah, anyway.
So New South Wales Origin has been a mess even though they, Brad Fittler won 2 in a row and all that kind of stuff. New South Wales Origin has been a mess since 2006.
Yeah, for the best part of 20 years now.
Yeah, since 2006 it's been a mess.
Yeah.
And, Laurie Daly was all well and good, and he won 1 series. He was the one that stopped the streak, right?
Yeah, 1 in 2014.
Yeah.
But then I think he lost 3 series in a row.
The ones he lost were due to, because I love that at the time, he's such a nice guy, he wouldn't cut the people that needed to be cut.
You can't be too nice in a job like that, can you? And he seems like a really good bloke.
Yeah, that was the thing with him. But, far out. I just feel bad for New South. I'm so sick of feeling bad as a New South Welshman, to be honest. Why can't we all be Queenslanders?
It's been a long 17 years, John, of very limited success. So they've only won. Well, Fittler won 3 series, didn't he? And they only won 1. So only 4 series wins in 17 years.
Yeah,
that's a long time.
Terrible, terrible time. Maybe Andrew Johns can come back and play.
Well, that's the thing. We talk about Nathan Cleary, a great player, obviously, but he hasn't really owned that Origin arena. The last gun halfback New South Wales had was Andrew Johns. Yeah,
and then you had the whole Mitchell Pearce sucks so much. He's the terrible. And then he finally won one, which was one of the greatest moments ever. Mitchell Pearce finally got his win. Thanks, Brad Fittler. So, yeah, that's NRL. The Brad Fittler situation is nonsense. Yeah, Origin is nonsense. We can move on to AFL, which was actually, amazing.
Amazing, John.
I unfortunately had to watch it on replay. I watched it yesterday.
Yeah.
I was monitoring the score. This was so weird because I would check the scores every, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And the leader had changed, every time I checked. It was crazy. It was, the GWS Magpie Collingwood game last week was the game of the season. Until the grand final, which is exactly what you want to see, right? You want the grand final to be the best game of the season. But the lead changed 7 times, I believe.
Yeah, it just ebbed and flowed the whole game. John, I'm sorry for bringing it up. I did say Collingwood by 4 points.
Yes. So Mystic Dan.
Sorry that in there. But yeah, John, you just didn't know which way it was going to go. It just ebbed and flowed the whole game. Quite extraordinary. Now there was a situation late in the game, John, where I wanted to bring it up with you. So Brisbane should have had a free kick. An advantage was wrongly called because they didn't get that much of an advantage. So we've got this kick was from about 55 out, so it was outside the 50-metre arc. So there are people blowing up on Twitter, surprise, surprise.
There could be Russian disinformation bots.
Saying that, people blowing up on Twitter saying that, this has cost Brisbane the game. Okay. We've said this a lot of times on this podcast. All right, so the kick, if they had the free kick, he's still 55 metres out. He wouldn't have been able to get it there in one kick. Even if he could get it there in one kick, he's still got to kick it through the goals. Presumably, he kicks it 10, 15 metres out. Someone's still got to mark it and kick a goal. So to say that costs Brisbane the whole result is completely ridiculous, John. The usual brigade on Twitter, that John Ralph from the Herald Sun. Again, John, it's as if he just waits there, waiting there on his typewriter, waiting for... Seriously, he just sits there and he just corrects everybody. Corrected the Brownlow votes the other night, corrected the umpires here. He just literally sits there waiting for a mistake, John, and he swoops in on it.
One 10-second passage of play doesn't decide the outcome of a 2-hour match unless that 10-second of play is in the last 10 seconds. Okay?
Yeah. And there's no further play after that.
Yes, exactly. It's the last 10 seconds.
And you can't be certain that they would have kicked a goal with that opportunity.
I know of 2 in my life across all sport. Okay?
Was one of them that 2009 Bulldogs-Dragons game? Yes.
That passage of play decided the match. The other one was another Dragons match in which the siren went off earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. The siren went off earlier, and it was like 10 seconds earlier. Dragons were playing the ball, and then the game was called off. And then they were like, "Oops, sorry, the siren."
Because those decisions were literally right on the last breath.
Okay. So then the Dragons were down by 2, and they looked like they were going to score and stuff. But I mean that you can't decide whether that one the Dragons would have won. With the Bulldogs won. The Bulldogs won that match. It's Jamie Soward, Milkman, perfect. This was a disappointing thing to happen in a grand final, and you always talk about in sports, you don't want it to be the decision in the final, right? You don't want the rest to affect the decision in the final. This didn't rest decision to affect the outcome of the final. The outcome wasn't affected by this decision.
Yeah.
A small 10-second passage of play was affected by this decision.
Yeah, that's right.
And the Lions were ahead 4 times, whatever it was. The Lions were ahead 3 times. So if you want to talk about like teams that have lost it by going behind, like they had their chance.
It's one decision in a game that goes for 3 hours, John.
Yes, 3 hours.
And again, it might have. The better way of phrasing it is it potentially denied Brisbane an opportunity to kick a goal that would have put them in front.
It's the kind of thing a politician says.
Yeah, exactly. That's a lot of uncertainty in that. There's no certainty.
It wasn't the thing that decided the outcome of the game. The other 3 hours of the game decided the outcome of the game, in which Collingwood played really, really well. Brisbane played really, really well. All of the individual players played really, really well, and unfortunately, Collingwood won by 4. What you really should be looking at is the fact that Collingwood scored way less goals, but like 18 behinds, and so in all of that, Collingwood was able to pull off that win by not converting their chances.
Yeah, well, that's right, John. I mean, you just thought that because Brisbane were so much more efficient on goal, you just thought, well, Brisbane's only got to get close to Collingwood for scoring shots and they'll win because they're converting a lot more into goals. But they just couldn't create enough opportunities, John. Yeah,
and so it was, I should have actually written this down because I knew this would come up. Right.
So 12-18 to 13-8. So that's 30 scoring shots to 21. So Brisbane only needed to get a bit closer to that number. They win the game.
And so you think about all right, if you're going to talk about what ifs and possibles and potentials, if Brisbane Lions had one more additional scoring opportunity, they would have won the game It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
And yes, a scoring
That's right.
The opportunity to potentially having a scoring opportunity was taken away from them by a poor refereeing decision.
But that's the thing, is you look at it and go, well, it's on Brisbane for not creating enough opportunities.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
That was only one potential opportunity.
That's one opportunity.
If they'd had, even all they would have needed is one or two more gets them there, John.
If you had taken away if you took away like a few of Collingwood, if the Lions had been able to take away a few of Collingwood's opportunities, the Collingwood score wouldn't have changed much different because most of theirs were behinds anyway. But if the Lions were able to take a few more opportunities, they would have been well ahead because most of theirs were goals. So no, it's nonsense. It was a cracker of a game. It was so good, and I hate the fact that the thing we have to talk about is one silly thing that happened like with 3 minutes to go or whatever.
Yeah, so let's talk about something else then, John. I'm going to talk about Bobby Hill winning the Norm Smith medal. He kicked 4 goals, had 18 disposals. But to be honest, John, I thought this is no disrespect to Bobby Hill, of course, but I thought you could easily have given it to Jordan De Goey as well. He kicked 2 goals and had 18 disposals, but we talk about the stats not telling the full story, John. Every one of his 18 disposals, he made them count. Every time he touched the ball, he had an impact on the game. I love Jordan De Goey. Jordan De Goey's got that good arrogance about him. I love his arrogance. He's so confident in himself. He's just got plays with no fear. He's not scared of anyone. He's not scared of any stage. He's the player you want on grand final day, John. Yeah. Absolutely.
I like that Bobby Hill got it because if you watch that TV show King of the Hill, the son's name is Bobby Hill. And now there's a lot of memes with the medal winner. So it gives me something to laugh at on the internet. That's the only reason I thought it was awesome Bobby Hill won it. But I actually thought at the time it was a bit, when I watched the match back, I thought, I don't know if he was the best player on the field. The best of... I don't know who awards it. That's the thing. Is it a media vote or what?
I think it's a panel of... There's a panel of... I think it's former players who make the decision, John.
Obviously with the NRL there was a super clear decision. And if Brisbane had won, then Ezra Mam would have got it. Super clear decision. But in the AFL... this grand final that was so close, it was a bit of a contentious decision. I can't remember. There was one other player that I thought could have got it as well. I can't remember who it was though at the time when I was watching it. But I think perhaps De Goey should have got it. But fair enough. Bobby Hill got it because I get memes. So many good memes.
So the premiership sees Collingwood join Essendon and Carlton on 16 VFL/AFL premierships, John. So those 3 clubs now share the lead for most premierships won, and it was Collingwood's first premiership since 2010.
Yeah. So about their years, actually.
I just got one more thing to say about the game, if I could, John. Now, I don't know if you saw this, but in the very dying stages of the game, with the match on the line, I saw the CEO, Gil McLaughlin, getting his photo taken with Anthony Albanese, trying to get in some selfie or something. At that time of the game, he's worrying about getting a photo with Anthony Albanese and not watching the game. That's just... To me, that's just show pony stuff, John. Like, the CEO not watching the game. Does he think he's a Hollywood celebrity or something? I mean, he's the CEO.
Has. He always has.
He's the CEO, and now he's gone, and, some of us are not too unhappy about that.
No, he's always not been really, less of a fan, more of a CEO he's been, but,
more of a celebrity.
Yeah, that's what, less of a fan, more of a celebrity. And I think under his leadership, to be honest, it hasn't been going 100% super well, over there. So the NRL and some NRL clubs have taken some inroads under the leadership.
Well, I'll put it this way, John. I don't think they've made the inroads that they thought they would in New South Wales and Queensland, particularly New South Wales. I think 10 years ago they would have had much higher hopes that they would have made up a lot more ground in Sydney. I think Rugby League really has staved off the threat in Sydney,
and I think
to a great degree.
The Dolphins is a success. It's only 1 year in, obviously, but the Dolphins is a success story that shows the Queensland, they've held them off out of Queensland as well, because the Dolphins had a massively successful year from crowd numbers, memberships, everything. And man, 10 years ago, I remember there was a massive worry about rugby league dying and AFL like taking over. And AFL had like $150 million war chest.
The number of people who would tell you that rugby league was dying in Sydney, like, give me a break. Like, seriously, you think so?
When there's the rumblings like that, and your competing organisation has hundreds of millions of dollars in a war chest to shut you down, as a CEO, if you haven't been able to achieve that, you've actually been a bit of a failure of a CEO, to be honest. I think the leadership under him has been...
Well, nobody cares about GWS, no one.
Yeah.
They haven't made any ground.
I did last week.
Yeah, no, actually, you're the only one, John, just you.
Last week, though. Only for 1 week, man.
I think the Swans have a niche in Sydney. They do, but it's not because of Gil McLachlan. They had it long before he...
Yeah, they've done nothing.
That Swans niche, I think, was really built up in the late 90s when Tony Lockett was at his best.
I feel like prior to him, the AFL concentrated a lot on the expansion of the game and the expansion of the individual teams and building up the AFL game to where it was. And since him, it's been left to the clubs to build up their own areas.
I think
that's why the NRL, on the other hand, has followed that old AFL model of using like the NRL propping everyone up and getting everyone up and getting like rugby league out there and stuff like that. And so strategically... the sole job of a CEO is to implement strategy. Strategically, the NRL has actually become better than the AFL.
And I think prior to Tony Lockett and the Super League war, the Sydney Swans were just like the Sydney Kings basketball team.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think at that time, when the Tony Lockett coming and the Super League war, the Swans created a niche for themselves. But I wouldn't say it's any bigger now than what it was at that time. I don't think it's really grown that much. They at the end in the late 90s, John, they would fill the SCG regularly. They went on a huge winning streak at the SCG, the Swans. They basically only lost about maybe one or no games over a 12-month period at the SCG. They're not filling the SCG like they used to, John. They're not. They still get consistently decent crowds. But they don't fill it every week. The Swans are no bigger in Sydney now than they were 25 years ago.
I used to see ads leading up to the season for the AFL. And now, I don't watch television anymore, but billboards and stuff. And now I don't. But I do see NRL ones. And that's why I just think the AFL's kind of dropped the ball about their expansion. Have become comfortable. And we know what's happened with rugby union. You don't want to become too comfortable because NRL will shut you down.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're in that category, but they're certainly the new CEO. I think he's got some work to do in the expansion areas, John. I know they're looking at Tasmania. They got that new stadium.
That's terrible. They should.
But the market's very small down there.
Well, the thing with Tasmania is there's a Utopia episode specifically about building a stadium in Tasmania and expanding a sporting team there. And anytime there's a Utopia episode about something, you probably shouldn't do it. I think that's a bad idea. They should expand to like other teams in Western Australia or Northern Territory or anywhere. But not Tasmania. Tasmania's not a big enough market for anything. Unfortunately for Tasmania. I'm not bagging on Tasmania. But, I'm not going to go expand to Lord Howe Island either. Build a stadium out there that takes up the whole island.
I know in my rantings before I referenced typewriters, didn't I?
Yeah,
I've got to catch
beautiful.
up. Sorry.
No, it's beautiful. It's like he types it out on his typewriter and then gives it to his assistant.
I'm stuck in the dark ages here, John.
So, the Collingwood year has been... actually, I think you could kind of say the Collingwood year has been perfect, given that they were up by, I think, 16 points at one point at number one, on the ladder. And then they had some unfortunate injuries that cruelled their form, and all of their players came back at the perfect time.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. So they became ladder leaders after round 7, John.
Yep.
Won the minor premiership, 18 wins in the regular season. Then beating Melbourne, GWS, Brisbane, obviously, to claim the premiership. Yeah, obviously, Nick Dacos, Darcy Moore were fantastic this year, John. I think one thing that they've added, the coach, Craig McRae, he's got them playing this positive, really fun brand of football, and it sort of endeared Collingwood to the opposition supporters. They've had a lot of trouble endearing themselves to opposition supporters, but it's a different Collingwood now, John. There's a lot of love for Collingwood from other fans. They've earned the respect of other fans. The only glitch, as you mentioned, losing 3 of 4 games between rounds 20 and 23, and that was without those players like you talked about, Dacos and Moore. I think Nick Dacos was their best player this year, John. He obviously finished third in the Brownlow.
Losing him was a massive loss. And, they still managed to potter along. And then, those players came back at the perfect time for them to win the premiership. Unfortunately for the Lions, they can't solve their MCG issue. We talked about it actually a little bit on Thursday. The Lions, the Lions can't win a premiership unless they can win at the MCG. That's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, John, I don't have the stats in front of me, but we did go through them on Thursday.
It was something like 2 out of the past 12 or 2 out of the past 18. Yeah,
it was a lot. It was they were damning statistics.
Yeah. And
they're going to have a look at it.
Well, you have to win at the MCG to win a premiership. If you can't win at the MCG, then you can't win a premiership. And so, we were talking about, that'll play on their mind continually, we're at the MCG, we never win at the MCG. They will never say it, but in the back of their minds, they're just going man, I play for the Lions, I can't win at the MCG. The Lions can't win at the MCG, they can't win at the MCG, they never win at the MCG. We lost at the MCG again.
Yeah. It's become a thing, hasn't it?
Yeah,
and once it becomes a thing,
there's
it gets in your head.
Scientific explanation for why some streaks happen, but they've really got to solve. That's their one thing they need to solve. If they go through next year and they can win even one game at the MCG, then I would say they can win. As it is, based on this year, I would say Collingwood could actually win again next year.
Yeah, certainly, John. If we look at, you mentioned the Lions need to fix up their MCG record, and that's true. Their record at home doesn't need fixing. 13 wins from 13 games this year. Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbeatable at the Gabba. And they won those games by an average margin of 34 points. So if only they could play the grand final at the Gabba. They should have got in the year they played it up there, the COVID year. So that was the year to strike for them. Hard not to say that Lachie Neale was their best player after he won the Brownlow, John.
Unfairly. It's...
Even if you thought it was a bit unfair, I think...
The Lions can win if they break that MCG curse, but otherwise, I just think next year Collingwood could possibly win it again. They always talk about... we talk about gains and losses in the NRL. The gains and losses in the AFL are less effect because they're normally... It comes around the draft. And we will talk about the draft when it comes... and see what we think after that. But I just think Collingwood are, based on their year performance, they're a class above everyone else. They are, they always say there's levels to this game no matter what sport you go to, and there are, based on this year, there was levels to this game. Collingwood was a different level to every other team. Yeah. And none of the other teams showed, to be honest, that they were anywhere near that level, including the Lions, who can't win at the MCG. Even though they only lost by 4. But they can't win at the MCG.
Yeah, that's the thing. And, probably the two grand finals probably don't reflect how dominant Collingwood and Penrith were this year.
Definitely.
I think the other teams, they've got a lot of catching up to do. Penrith are a bit scrappy on grand final day. Collingwood, maybe not quite at their best, but I think certainly the two best teams.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah. So AFL news. I just want to go over this because I did mention it the other day. Craig McRae, the Collingwood coach, refuses to wear his premiership medal.
Really?
He's come out and said it's basically a load of crap. The way the AFL refuses to give everyone in the squad a medal.
Right. So the Jock McHale medal that he got. Right. Okay. Yep. So he's not wearing it. Interestingly, he did have a baby at 7:45 a.m. on grand final day. There you go.
So he highlights 3 players as a reason why it's absolute nonsense. Okay, so Dan McStay missed out on the grand final after being injured in the prelim. So why didn't he get a medal? Okay, they won their prelim, obviously. Taylor Adams, which we talked about last week, what it actually came out is he ruled himself out because he didn't feel that he was 100% fit and didn't want to risk their chances. And I think that decision, seeing as the Collingwood only won by 4 points, is a really big decision that he's made. And he doesn't get a medal. And John Noble, which, is less so because that comes up to the coach. John Noble played 83 games in a row for the Magpies and then was dropped for the whole final series. I don't know. Go back to the coach. Mate, don't complain about that if you're the coach that dropped him. But he highlights
that's right.
these three players as why don't they get a medal? And so he chooses not to wear his medal for this. He's right. He's just right.
You could argue that anyone who plays a game in a year where the premiership is won contributes to the premiership being
That's
won.
what he wants.
And therefore should get a medal.
That's what he wants.
So you could argue it should go to anybody who played a senior level game for the club in that season that they won a premiership.
Yeah, that's what he said. Like everybody. There's a
counter argument though, John, where you sort of go, it's such a coveted thing to win that it only goes to those who play on grand final day.
I don't think it should be anyone who's played a senior level game because you have some players who play the first round and that round they get beat.
So should there be a minimum number of games you play during the season to get it?
Like, it shouldn't be based on just playing a game. I think it should just be the entire first grade squad, whether they play or don't. Because even if you're playing a losing match in the first round or whatever, you're still part of the first grade squad. If you don't play, you're still part of the first grade squad. And then that makes it so they know how many to print as well or make. Like NRL, it's 30. We definitely have to make 30. Yes, you'll still have some people who will miss out, okay? But you're not going to have people who miss out because they weren't in this thing. You'll have people who miss out who are elevated to given exemptions or dispensations to play a single game because the team has an injury crisis or whatever and does play like 1 or 2 games. Or that person will play all the way through to the grand final or whatever. But I just think the first grade squad, you have a set number. That way you get 30 in the... I don't know how many's in the first grade squad in the AFL.
Could even be like 40, I think.
Yeah, there's just 40 of them. Everyone gets one, plus the coach.
The coach gets the Jock McHale medal, the premiership coach.
Yeah, the coach gets a medal or a ring in the NRL, because there are guys who will play every single game all the way up. You could potentially have somebody who kicks a match-winning goal in the match before the grand final who hasn't missed a minute of football all year, and then as he kicks, he falls over and tears his MCL and doesn't get a medal or a ring or anything like that.
That's right.
And like I said last week, I just don't think there's any reason for it. It's just weird. Anyway, that's my news for the AFL.
Yeah.
Somebody agrees with me. So who do you think won the entertainment? Because it's always the main competition of the Australian sporting world. Who won the grand final entertainment, NRL or AFL?
Yeah, it's completely subjective, isn't it?
Unless it's Meatloaf.
I'm not going to do what the Daily Mail do and just wait for 3 or 4 people to blow up about somebody on Twitter and turn it into a story. I know they sit there and go, let's just wait for the 4th person to say it, then we'll go with the story.
Yeah, because isn't that the news thing? You have to have 3 sources.
and they probably create the Twitter accounts and have their staff.
Look, you never know if a Twitter account...
I hope we don't have a sponsorship arrangement with the Daily Mail.
You'll never know if a tweet is actually from a Russian troll farm anyway. So anybody who uses tweets as news is the Daily Mail.
That's what the clickbait sites do, John.
Absolutely.
3 or 4 tweets, let's go with it.
So,
and it's rubbish, and it's got to stop.
I found the NRL entertainment to be super bodgy because I didn't want to watch a cover band of Tina Turner because I don't like Tina Turner's music.
I didn't think the cover band were very good, John.
But I also thought that Kiss was super bodgy because I don't like Kiss.
But to be honest, John, I thought Kiss were a bit flat. They weren't quite at their best.
There's been some apologies about the TV broadcast though, because the director, they had the guitar smash that the Channel 7 missed and stuff like that. So apparently at the match, it was really, really, really good is what I've heard.
I just thought, and I don't claim to know the ins and outs of the band Kiss, John. I don't know the names of the singers. I thought I don't know. I thought one of the vocalists was a bit off. I thought it was just a bit...
We're 70 years old, man.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Afterwards, I thought, maybe I'm showing my age. I'm not a cranky old man. I'm a cranky old man who doesn't like even older man music. Because, the people on my social that were... I had quite a few people put complainers on blast. right? So, because obviously on my social media, I have a lot of people who are like, oh, this is terrible, blah, blah. And that some other people responded to them and said, like, shut the hell up, it was awesome. What I found was the defenders were all like my one generation above mine. You know, like the people who went to Kiss concerts in 1960 or whatever, or went and watched. Like, actually, one of my uncles said he loves Tina Turner, as one of his favorite singers of all time, and he watched her live in 1989 or something like that. And like that's one of the things about the entertainment I found. It seemed like it was targeted to the generation above, like my generation, which I guess is boomers. And I don't think, from a marketing perspective, you don't target, older generations. You target the new people coming in. So when I thought the best entertainment I've ever seen for an NRL or AFL grand final was Macklemore, because he was, that was really, really, like, obviously there was a lot of hate about it, but it was during the, what was it called, the plebiscite for gay marriage. He was very popular at that stage because the year before he'd won the Triple J Hottest 100 and blown up. He had a song about gay marriage, or, it's okay to be gay and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was a really good, like, choice from a marketing perspective, because it appeals to the younger audiences. And of course, like I said, man, like the same uncle that defended Tina Turner cover fully put Macklemore on blast. He's like, I hate this young rap crap stuff. So yeah, like, you'll never please anyone. But I just think both codes need to start targeting a younger audience as opposed to an older one.
And they got. I remember that year they got One Republic to do it, John, but it was about 10 years too late, wasn't it?
Yeah. One Republic, who were probably at that stage selling out Rudy Hill RSL.
Yeah.
Like that was a bizarre choice as well. But they always have some mistakes. Like Meatloaf obviously is the most famous one, right?
Yeah.
The Meatloaf failure was a failure, but in the end, I don't think either one.
Who's in their prime now, John? Maybe they'll get Ed Sheeran in to perform at the 2033 grand
They can
final.
Do Taylor Swift at the AFL and Ed Sheeran at the NRL.
2033, Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran.
It's and that'll be appealing to us. Or actually, my daughter.
I've actually, at the end of the show, John, I do have a bit more to say about Taylor Swift, if you can believe it or not.
Oh my God! Oh, she's dating the right.
Yeah. But to be honest, John, I thought Mark Seymour and Kate Miller-Heidke were actually really good. I don't think that they should listen to those clickbait sites who were just giving it to them after their performance.
Yeah, so that one, it's weird because what I kind of find in live stadium gigs is acoustic sets are not your best option. Like in massive stadiums. Man, I went, like, harken back to when I was a young lad in like 1997 or 1998 or something like that, and I went and watched Metallica in like what was the Entertainment Centre? That was what it was called. It's gone now, right? That's how old I am. And they changed to an acoustic set halfway through their set, and a whole bunch of people left. A Metallica concert that at the time we paid $33 for, guys. That's how much we used to pay for tickets.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad, John.
But then it was after they finished their acoustic set, they kicked into all that old school stuff like the Master of Puppets, and that was where everyone really blew up. But I just think, unless you're Ed Sheeran or Adele or something like that, like low volume, non-pumpy kind of acoustic set is not your best option. From I'm a massive music fan. I always tell you, I don't listen to music because I hate the criticism that comes along with listening to music, but I do listen to music. Yeah. I thought it was freaking awesome, man. I really loved it. Yeah. Like, I can understand why people at the stadium were saying, like, doing their tweets, this is bodge. Because, like I said, stadium gigs for acoustic sets are not your best thing. But, man, watching it on television, I was like, this is so good. Yeah. Like, it's so good. Both of them, they, like, perform really well. The songs were awesome.
So I think all in all, we'd have to give it to the honours to the AFL for entertainment this year.
Yeah. And whatever the band was for the NRL, the other band that was the Northern Territory, I don't even know who they were, right? Yeah. I thought they were really cool, too. Like, they were cool. It was, like... But to me, that was like, they got a pub gig going on here. I don't know who these guys are. And then, like, I didn't have anyone... So in the house I had... we had the oldest child was 11, and then it goes down. And then the youngest adult was my wife, who is... Oh, God. like 40. So I'm guessing that band sits in between the 11 to 40-year-old group. Because I don't even know.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I think the AFL was a little bit better just because the quality of performance was better. I'm sure people who love Tina Turner love the Tina Turner cover band. But I didn't know. I didn't care. I thought it was Bodge. I was like, I don't want to watch Tina Turner cover band. If it had been Tina Turner, I wouldn't have wanted to watch Tina Turner either, though. That was my thing. Like, I don't know why everyone's complaining. If you don't like it, just don't watch it. Go chuck on the Barbie now, bro.
Yeah. Just switch it on when the game starts.
Yeah. But at least, like, what I kind of think with all of these things is at least it wasn't like Meatloaf. Because Meatloaf had bad vocals. The production was really low quality. It was actually like, that wasn't objectively bad. That was subjectively terrible.
Yeah.
And I always go from that upwards, like, at least it wasn't Meatloaf, man. What are you complaining about?
Yeah, that's and I know one of the singers of Kiss said before the gig, don't worry, there's no meatloaf on the menu.
Brilliant. See, so get off your typewriters if you want to complain about it.
I brought back the typewriter.
Yeah, buy yourself an iPhone.
It's back in vogue, John.
So that's the main happenstances over the week, and of course this podcast was always going to be mostly about that.
Yeah.
But we did have some other things happen.
I'm happy. Have we got the cricket next on the rundown? Do you want me to run you through that warm-up game with the Netherlands, John?
It was Netherlands versus Australia in a warm-up game.
Yep.
From what I understand, it's classed as a no result.
Yeah, so Australia made 7 for 166 from 23 overs, John. Rain shortened the match to 23 overs at side. So Steve Smith top scored for the Aussies with 55 from 42 balls. The Netherlands made 6 for 84 from 14.2 overs, John, before the rain hit again. And, the match, as you said, was deemed a no result. Mitchell Starc took a hat-trick in this game, John. He became just the 7th Australian to take a hat-trick in a men's ODI. The others were Bruce Reid, Anthony Stewart, never heard of him, Brett Lee, Dan Christian, Clint Mackay and James Faulkner. Starc took 3 for 18 from his 3 overs. He also made 24 not out from 22 balls with the bat. So a good effort from him, John. One thing I noticed that interested me, John, is Marnus Labuschagne came into bat at number 9 in this game. Am I missing something? He only had time to make 3 not out from 5 balls. Came in below Starc and Cummins in the batting order. I know it's a warm-up game, but that was curious to me.
Yeah, I read a thing last week that he was in danger of being cut from the squad, but it didn't give reasons why.
Right, yeah.
So I don't know.
If you're Marnus Labuschagne, you don't really want to be coming in lower than Starc and Cummins in the batting order.
I didn't know that, but I did read a thing that said the Netherlands bowled really well by keeping Australia only to 166. And I was like, because when I first glimpsed at it, I was like, oh my God, Australia hit 166? All that, wait a second, 23 overs? 166 in 23 overs is pretty good for me, for my mind as well,
Well, that's the thing, it's not, what people have got to remember, I think a lot of people would probably be viewing that like a 2020 score and going, oh, well, it was 3 more overs than a 2020. But what you got to remember is they entered it thinking it was a 50-over game.
50 overs different.
Yeah, they would have had a different mindset, a different mentality. So you can't just look at it and go, oh, in a 2020 game, that'd be just average, and it was 3 more overs. Yeah. Because their mindset's different.
Exactly. So I thought 166 from 23 overs is pretty good. If you want to extrapolate, okay, which is a nonsense thing to do, if that had continued at that run rate by 46 overs, they would have been 322, which is a really good result.
Yeah.
So again, the batting order was really good. Mitch Marsh, from what I understand, also had a good match.
To be honest, he's not in my notes, John, but yeah.
But he's coming back from injury, so he's one to watch to see how he goes. And then we got the Pakistan game coming up tonight.
Yeah, tonight, 7:30 p.m. Sydney time, John, at Hyderabad. So,
Hyderabad.
Hyderabad, sorry. Hyderabad, sorry.
No, don't worry. Look at all the... you had to correct me for Tino's name before. So.
So I'll just say, John, this podcast is being recorded on Tuesday afternoon. The game's on Tuesday night for anybody watching.
Yeah.
After the game's already been played. It's the final hit-out for the Aussies before the tournament proper.
Yeah, so the tournament starts on Sunday. For Australia, it starts on Sunday, and we'll be doing a massive cricket...
good opportunity to do it with the football over now,
Yeah,
John.
we'll probably go through every single team and their
why
and
not?
stuff too.
Why not?
So, hopefully Australia does well against Pakistan.
Yes.
And we can move on to everyone's favourite subject.
Rugby.
And, oh my God, Australia versus Portugal. It was actually a terrible game of rugby union.
Oh, really? You don't say, John.
Australia did get the bonus point. So what that means, Fiji plays Portugal. That's the last game of the non-knockout, the group stages. If Fiji were to lose, then Australia would progress. If Fiji were to lose without a bonus point, then Australia would progress.
Yeah, so I've taken a few notes on the Australia-Portugal game, John. So, Australia won 34-14 with a bonus point. Their final pool game at St. Etienne. So for 8 minutes of that second half, the Wallabies had to battle with just 13 men. Matt Fiesler and Samu Karevi were both sent to the sin bin. And you have looked ahead to this Fiji-Portugal game, John. So, as you said, they only need to pick up 1 point or more in that game, and Australia are done and dusted, John.
Yeah, so even if they lose and get a bonus point, Australia are out. But Fiji was terrible against Georgia. They only won 17-12.
Yes.
So did Fiji throw, this is the query now, did Fiji throw it all out against Australia to get that win? And now they don't have enough to even beat Portugal.
Well, that it sort of gives it context, the fact that Georgia had that 18-all draw with Portugal as well. So Georgia have drawn with Portugal. Fiji only beat Georgia 17-12. So you look at that and you go, well, is there some sort of chance for Portugal? And by extension, is there some sort of chance that the Wallabies can continue on here?
I don't want to be a terrible person, but I do want to be a terrible person, and I really hope Fiji win. Because if they don't, and Australia does manage to scrape through, that is going to be a bullcrap excuse. Because everybody who follows sport can only remember a week ago. It's going to be a bullcrap excuse as to why Australia did well. Well, they made the knockout stages, but the way they make it.
To be honest, John, I don't think you're going to have that problem.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to happen.
I really hope Fiji win, though.
So Fiji are obviously favourites to win, but if they don't, John, they can earn that extra bonus point by scoring 4 or more tries or losing by 7 points or less. So a lot has to happen for Australia to get through.
It's never going to happen.
It's hard to see it happening.
And so just some other standings. New Zealand finally took their spot as second on their ladder. So they ended up smashing Italy by like 90 points to get that. South Africa and Ireland are leading the Pool B. So that's New Zealand and France in Pool A. France and New Zealand. Ireland still has one to play. Currently Australia sits second in Pool C, but Fiji still has one to play. Pool D is England and Argentina sit first. Japan still has a possibility of actually pipping Argentina there, but definitely not England. So the knockout stage is going to be interesting. My team is Ireland. I hope Ireland win it all. They are going to have there's a few powerhouses in that thing, like France, New Zealand, South Africa, England. But Ireland are the feel-good story of the tournament.
Absolutely. Still a long way to go, John. Runs to the end of the month. The Rugby
I know. It's 29th of October.
Certainly a marathon, not a sprint this one.
So there's a lot of people calling for the CEO of Rugby Australia's head because there's some more news. They've pulled the offer for Angus Crichton. They're no longer offering. It would end up being 1.6 million over 2 years, so 800,000 a year. Apparently, Angus Crichton is on around 600,000 at the Roosters, so he wouldn't have been taking much of a pay upgrade to go there. The reason they pulled it is because it's bad optics to sign a player from Rugby League.
They finally got the memo, John. They finally worked it out.
But what's come out now is Rugby Australia is going to try and pursue Nathan Cleary for the 27 World Cup because his contract expires in 2027. He has expressed interest before in playing rugby union. He's won, 3 premierships, 2 Clive Churchill medals. The only thing that Nathan Cleary had, he's won a World Cup. I don't know. The only thing he hasn't done is won a Dally M, I believe. And you think pulling your offer from Angus Crichton for bad optics is a good idea, and then saying, now we're planning ahead to try and chase Nathan Cleary for 2027.
I think pigs will fly before Nathan Cleary will join rugby union.
Idiotic thing to do. So there's a lot of people calling for the head of the CEO of Rugby Australia now because of this.
We're assuming that they're not going to make the knockout stage. They're probably not. Yeah, Eddie Jones has got to go and the CEO's got to go. Is it Hamish McLennan?
Hamish McLennan, yeah.
Hamish McLennan.
He's only a new CEO, though.
There's got to be accountability when a big national team doesn't make the knockout stage of a World Cup when they're expected to go deep in the tournament, John. There's got to be some accountability for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's only a new CEO, but yeah, he's definitely it's just absolute garbage to do stupid stuff like that. I don't understand how Rugby Australia can be so poorly run. There is also I can't remember who suggested it. Someone suggested it to Nick Flanders that Peter Flanders that the NRL should buy Australian rugby. Why would anyone want that garbage heap? I don't know if it was a joke or not, but he just said nah. So we'll have to see what happens on Saturday, Fiji versus Portugal. If Fiji loses and doesn't get a bonus point, Australia gets through, and then we all have to sit there and watch Australia get smashed the following week.
So they're taking it as if they're going to keep going, John. They're having a few days off, and then they're going to train for a few days in preparation.
Yeah.
The Wallabies I guess they have to assume they're going to continue on until they're out. Until they're definitely out.
2027 is the Rugby World Cup in Australia. So we don't want a repeat of this then. They have 4 years to fix Rugby Australia. Not fix the team, but to fix Rugby Australia.
They've got a lot of work to do, John.
Yeah, nonsense. That's rugby. We'll see what happens. In combat sports, I also, on the weekend, I watched...
Alvarez and Charlo, is that right?
Yeah, so Canelo Alvarez, for people who don't know, he got beat by Floyd Mayweather and then changed his entire game and became basically the greatest modern boxer after Floyd Mayweather. He has lost before when he moved up weight class. Jamel Charlo moved up 2 weight classes to try and get the belt from Alvarez, but Alvarez pieced him up. It was a domination. Absolutely ridiculous. The reason that Charlo moved up is because people were saying that Alvarez's time is over, but Canelo is Canelo, and he was like, it's not over. Don't be silly. So he bashed the crap out of Jamel Charlo. And this one of the reasons this is interesting is because he moved up, boxing's very quick to strip people from their titles, because he was a world champion in middleweight. It was WBO middleweight champion. Tim Tszyu was granted the WBO middleweight title because it was stripped from Charlo.
Yeah, right.
So now Australia has another. Tszyu was a champion.
Yeah.
Charlo had a rematch clause to fight again, but he really shouldn't take it. And so he's already said he's not going to take it. He's going to drop back to middleweight and fight Tim Tszyu for the middleweight title. So that'll be a cracker of a match.
So where does, again, John, I'm no expert on the subject like you are, of course. Where does Tim Tszyu fit in the equation with these two? Where do you rank him compared with Alvarez and Charlo? Where would you put him?
He's definitely no Canelo Alvarez. But I think because he was going to fight Charlo, that was the thing, because he was the interim champion, and I think he probably would have beat Charlo.
Right, yeah.
Tim Tszyu's really, really good, man. Like, really, really good. There was the whole thing about how, like, what's his name? Zarafa and Tim Tszyu were the 2 Australian prospects, but Zarafa's very good as well, but he's no Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu is crazy good. And so I think this is going to be a cracker of a match. Jamel Charlo dropping back to his proper weight class, pushing to get his title back against Tim Tszyu, who didn't strictly earn it because he was granted it. Is going to be a cracker of a match. Just the pity about boxing, the shame about boxing is generally the cards are hard to watch because they pay so much money to their main attraction that everyone else below it is pretty crappy. It's guys who are it's like in boxing it'll be they're getting paid 12 show, 12 win, so 12,000 to show, 12,000 to win, and then the main event will be getting paid $50 million. Is
that where you get people like Tavita Pangai Jr. fighting on the
undercard? That's why he's going. So they have that. That's this weekend. Now that you mentioned that, so I was going to bring. So That's a rugby league event. There's a pay-per-view this week for a rugby league event where Justin Hodges versus Matt Cooper is the main event. Justin Hodges has got one professional fight that he lost. And then, Tavita Pangai Jr. wants to go to boxing because people go to boxing because when you first start, you might get like 3,000 show, 3,000 win, and it might go up to 12,000 show, 12,000 win. But then when you get into main events, you get like $2 million, $50 million. Like, Conor McGregor made like $110 million for that Floyd Mayweather fight, and then bought Proper 12 and then sold that for $1 billion.
Yeah.
He became a billionaire, not off the back of his UFC, obviously off the back of his personality and marketing ability, but he became a billionaire off the back of one boxing match.
Yeah, I've got no problem to Tavita Pangai Jr. doing it, John. I just thought he should have waited until his $750,000 a year NRL contract expired before.
He's crazy. So I heard one theory, and I don't buy into this at all, but it is something that comes out a lot about boxing, because boxing is way more relaxed. There are some people who move from sports to boxing because they get into trouble with either gambling or they pop for certain drugs. And they make a deal to like resign quietly and then disappear and go off and do boxing. That's one of the things that like I saw about Tavita Pangai Jr., which I was like, it's like, it happens every single time though. And because it had like boxing does have a history of this. They don't care if people bet on stuff unless they're betting on boxing. Like Tavita Pangai Jr., if he goes well, he's no Sonny Bill. Sonny Bill's famous. He walked straight into boxing for $1 million bouts. Tavita Pangai Jr.
Or Anthony Mundine.
Yeah, exactly. Anthony Mundine walked into $1 million bouts. Tavita Pangai Jr. actually has to build himself up to those high win show bonuses and actually get ranked before he'll start making real money. So it's a really bizarre...
When he was on real money in rugby league.
It's a strange thing because God knows what they're getting paid, but look, Justin Hodges is not getting paid millions of dollars to fight Matt Cooper, and Matt Cooper is not getting paid millions of dollars to fight Justin Hodges.
No, but they're not. They're also not on $750,000 a year NRL contracts at the moment.
They're also super old, man. I don't know what they're doing. Justin Hodges hasn't aged gracefully.
Hey, if you got nothing else to do in retirement, go box. Why not knock yourself out? But don't walk away from $750,000 to do it.
Well, it freed up a lot of salary cap space.
Oh, it did, yeah. Hey, from that point of view, I'm not complaining, John, but from his point of view, I don't get it.
Yeah, it was weird. So the other thing was the Gordon Ryan, greatest no-gi grappler in the world, returned from a long layoff and fought Patrick Gaudio Jr. When those two guys fought at, I think it was Pan Pacific No-gi years in 2018, it was a very close match. So Gordon Ryan, if you have to understand, he's won something like 65 matches in a row. He's ridiculously good. Nobody is anywhere near as good as him. But Gaudio, he only lost by 1 point when he lost. And so Gordon Ryan, the reason he wanted to fight Patrick Gaudio again was because he wanted to show how far he has advanced compared to the rest of them. And he dominated the crap out of him. But the reason I really liked it is... before the match, he gave the commentary table this like box, and he said, "Open it after the match." And then he went out and he finished Patrick Gaudio with an armbar, and then they opened the box, and he had predicted that he would do an armbar. But he also, at that very minute, released on an instructional website, basically an instruction on how to do armbars properly. Greatest marketing thing ever. So he goes out, finishes the guy with an armbar in front of every jiu-jitsu fame person, and then says, "Also buy my instructions on how to do armbars." Brilliant. So that was a great weekend of sport, really. Like, we had rugby league, we had AFL, we had boxing, we had jiu-jitsu. I can't wait for this week we've got cricket. Next week we've got cricket and rugby league back.
Yeah.
I
do have a couple more things.
Yeah. So let's talk about Taylor Swift.
Yeah, so Taylor Swift, John, she's dating Travis Kelce, an NFL player with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, since Taylor Swift showed up at the Chiefs-Bears game, which I think was the week before last, there has been a 400% increase in Travis Kelce jersey sales.
Oh, my God.
Kelce's podcast ranks #1 overall on Apple. Kelce has added 383,000 Instagram followers. 24.3 million viewers watched that game. It was the #1 watch game of the week, unsurprisingly.
Oh, my God.
That's the same number of people in Australia, John, that watched that one game. To put it in context for people, there was a 63% jump in female viewers aged 18 to 49.
Of course.
There were 3 times the number of searches for Chiefs on the web. 3 times the number of Chiefs sales on StubHub. For those who don't know, StubHub is an American ticket exchange and resale company. Also, Taylor Swift has already performed in 20 NFL stadiums in 2023. That's more than any NFL player will visit in the whole season, John.
That's gold. I know that.
So she's the queen of the world right now, Taylor Swift.
I know there's a lot of Chief fans who are actually complaining because when you're watching it on TV, they keep showing Taylor Swift instead of the match. But if it gets people to watch your game, you should be happy.
Hey, I think the NFL would be very happy with what's going on there, John.
So that's all you've really got to do. So, you know, the one of the other things, it was 4 million people watched the AFL Grand Final, 4 million people watched the NRL Grand Final, compared to 24 million who watched Taylor Swift.
Yeah, and it's just a normal game. It's not a final or it's not a postseason game.
That's crazy.
So there you go. I thought I'd just throw that in for a bit of colour.
So all I've got to do to make my sport famous is to date Taylor Swift. Got it. That's my plan for next week.
I got one other little thing for you too, John. The Australian Open has added an extra day to the event.
How?
The Australian Open will now start on a Sunday, making it a 15-day event. So round 1 will now be Sunday, Monday and Tuesday rather than just Monday and Tuesday. So the reason they've given for this, John, is that too many matches are running too late into the night, finishing too late. So they've just put another day up their sleeve. But what I don't understand about it, John, is it only really helps the round 1 matches because it's only adding an extra day to round 1. It doesn't impact on the rest of the tournament.
Yes,
so that's what I couldn't really work out.
I would say it's because they want to get rid of well, of course they want to sell more advertising.
Do they want to make it go over a third weekend? So to get that extra...
Yeah, some more advertising. And then they can't reduce the other rounds because then you would have less advertising.
Yeah, and round 1, there's so many matches, you can easily extend that over an extra day. Yeah, that's true.
Yes, but it's a lot of that would come down to a lot of what sport does is about broadcast and TV deals and stuff like that.
And it does get it going over that third weekend, John. So you don't just have the weekend in the middle and at the end. You got the one at the start now.
When does Australian Open start?
Oh, it's always the last 2 weeks of January,
that's
John.
Right, yeah. It's going to be an exciting time too. That'll be trials.
Yeah, we'll have that coming up as well. There's plenty still coming up, even though the footy's done.
Very exciting. Okay, so Thursday, we're going to do a comprehensive preview of the World Cup, which has 10 teams and 45 matches until the knockout stages. And so see everybody later. Don't forget to go to smartb.com.au to find all your sports news and updates.
Thanks, John. See you Thursday.
Thanks, Dan. See you Thursday.